Think about this. When you dine out for dinner, do you know how your restaurant rates with the health department?
Inspectors go through all of the food establishments in Allen County at least once a year to make sure everyone stays up to health code. But some restaurants are getting reports riddled with red marks.
Now, to keep you safe before you order, News Channel 15's Alyssa Iverson continues her 15 Finds Out investigation tonight in Restaurant Review. Alyssa?
Well, you may remember our food truck investigation last month. Now we wanted to know how the rest of the restaurants fared. We reviewed more than 2,000 inspection listing reports, and we found some habitual offenders, dozens of repeat violations. And we discovered the majority of the places with a lot of violations are serving up Asian cuisine.
Is it hard to stay up to the health code standards? Why are there 18 repeat violations from a year ago?
Those who are continually having a lot of violations, what do you do about that?
You see the repeats, you feel like you wrote this literally the last time.
I think one of the violations was that you guys had boxes kind of stored back here in the dining room, so you've got boxes again.
We're trying to get our best to get everything clean before the health inspection comes.
Thousands of restaurants across town cooking up your next meal. Part of the recipes, hundreds of health code requirements.
You observe the facility as much as we do the food handling.
In Allen County, most restaurants' report cards have very few or no violations, but some struggle to comply. 15 Finds Out requested the most recent inspection results for all the food establishments in Allen County for both this year and last. That's more than 2,400 inspections. We set the first criteria at 5 or more critical violations. Only about 5% of the restaurants were left on the list. A third of those serving Asian food. Strain that down even more to places with 10 or more critical violations, you're only left with about 10 restaurants each year. More than half are Asian establishments. We took the reports back to the health department.
Are you seeing more violations more often in Asian restaurants and grocery stores?
Overall, I wouldn't say one way or the other. Language barrier, I think, is the biggest issue there. For one, our food code is written in English. It's also published in Spanish, but those are the only two languages that I'm aware of that it's published in. And it's the English that it is, it's very legalese, it's not an easy read.
So is that the responsibility of the health department to help that language gap, or is that also the responsibility of the establishment owner to make sure they're understanding the laws and regulations?
We feel it's a partnership. Absolutely. We want to do our part to ensure that they understand, but they're also supposed to be compliant with that rule as well. So it helps if we both take ownership of that and kind of meet in the middle to work together towards that goal.
Of the restaurants with the most violations, 15 Finds Out discovered 4 were on that list 2 years in a row. Many of the infractions repeats.
Is the owner here?
15 Finds Out went to those restaurants to ask why. The new Double Dragon, Fortune Buffet, House of Hunan, and Great Wall 2 Buffet all had more than a dozen repeat violations, mostly for food storage and temperatures, like crab rangoon left sitting out.
Without the temperature going down, we can't just put it in the cooler because that would destroy all the crab rangoon also.
Every time when they come in, and then we do what them, ask us to do. We try to keep, everything safe and cleanness, keep the food hot and everything.
Why are there 18 repeat violations from a year ago then?
I will say that's probably due to a new employment. So we're getting new people, so that's why everyone always making same mistakes.
I think one of the violations was that you guys had boxes kind of stored back here in the dining room, so you've got boxes again.
The box gone so quickly, so it's never been all the way on the up. It's just about the store area.
House of Hunan declined an interview, but the person in charge tells us they're fixing their violations. It's just a lot to do all at once. Great Wall 2 Buffet told us to call the owner, who was out of state, but he didn't answer or return our calls. Most of the critical violations are corrected during the inspection, and the inspector goes over each one to make sure the owners understand why it's a violation.
They're doing good too. They're trying to explain us everything they have, all the inspections. They were trying to explain to you step by step.
Do you think the health department does enough to help you understand all the rules?
Oh yeah. Every time when whatever the inspector coming in, I always try to follow them and make a notes and everything. We try to obey all the regulations and everything. So hopefully, just try to get everything straight up.
15 Finds Out also learned the health department is even going a step further now. A new program for in-person meetings with operators having trouble staying up to code.
It's one thing to talk to an operator when they're in their establishment because they're busy, they're there working. So if we can kind of set across a time across the table where it's just us talking, then they can focus on it and maybe get a little bit better understanding that way as well.
The health department already uses a translator phone service during inspections and is also looking at in-person translators too.
That would be one resource we could use to ensure that understanding.
And just because a restaurant has a lot of violations doesn't necessarily mean it's unsafe.
The code is written to prevent the potential of contamination, but not the probability. So the potential is there that it is a health hazard, but there's very few things that are such an imminent health hazard that it would be unsafe to eat there.
Now, we do want to be clear, not every Asian restaurant had a lot of violations. In fact, many had 0. And there were non-Asian restaurants with a lot of violations too. We simply followed the pattern that surfaced when we pulled out the places with the higher violation totals. Here's the bottom line. The health department says if there's an immediate threat to public safety, the restaurant would be shut down. Now, you can see the latest inspection reports for all of the top violators right now on Wayne.com. And a lot of these critical violations that we're talking about, you probably actually do them in your own kitchen and you don't even know it. So tomorrow, Restaurant Review continues. We take a health inspector into a home kitchen. So find out if your habits in your house would stand up to the health code. That's tomorrow at 6.
It will be very interesting.
You might be surprised.
I'm sure. Thank you, Alyssa.